This is a second model for the strategy principles for choosing evidence. It's a strategy for choosing the most appropriate type of evidence to support your argument. There's also a how-to video if you want to see how this strategy works. So let's just remind ourselves what the three principles are: trustworthiness, emotional appeal, rational appeal. And using this matrix, we can match types of evidence to those principles. So for trustworthiness, we have expert quotes, eyewitness quotes, or case studies with plenty of detail. For emotional appeal, we have case studies involving a personal story, eyewitness quotes with emotional responses. Or for rational appeal, we have facts, statistics, research studies, analogical or causal reasoning. Before we apply this matrix, we ask ourselves three questions. What type of evidence best supports my claim? Which of the principles is important for this claim with this audience? And then, therefore, what type of evidence should I use? So let's look at this model. It's maybe a little more complex than model one was. So the purpose in this case is to convince people to support a non-governmental organization fighting for women's rights in Saudi Arabia. One of my grade 10 students who wrote this essay made a number of claims in the essay. One of those claims in support of this purpose was a successful battle for increased rights for women in Saudi Arabia requires that Saudi women believe they deserve more rights. And the audience for this particular piece of work was potential supporters of the non-governmental organization. Let's look at question one, the claim itself. What type of evidence would best support that claim? Some things to consider. We would definitely need evidence that supports a strong connection between success in this battle for rights and the belief of the people being oppressed. So whatever case studies or examples we use are going to have enough detail to prove that connection. Otherwise, we won't achieve our rational appeal. Since the claim is negative, it's not just saying, okay, it's going to help a bit if women believe they deserve more rights. It's actually saying if they don't believe they deserve more rights, then this is not going to work and we're not going to succeed. So perhaps our example or case study needs to be a case study where the fight for rights failed because the oppressed people didn't believe they deserved more rights or accepted their denial of rights too readily. Or perhaps a situation where the attitude of those people changed from acceptance of the denial of rights to no, we're going to fight for this. We deserve more rights. So once again, we're going to need those details to make it trustworthy. Let's have a look at the audience. So potential supporters, and especially Westerners maybe, are likely to assume that all women would want the rights, believe they have them, and would not accept not having those rights. So perhaps we need to create some empathy, we need some emotional appeal here by having things like quotes from women in the situation of Saudi Arabia or in other situations that we're using as case studies where they accepted the denial of rights or where they didn't even believe that they deserved those rights. They would need to be, in order to be trustworthy, they need to be very, very typical people and not kind of people that the audience might see as exceptional cases. A second consideration would be potential donors. Once again, perhaps especially Westerners, may believe that they have the power through economic pressure and all those kinds of things to influence the situation, regardless of whether the women inside in the situation believe that it's happening. So in order to make this trustworthy, we're going to need to have sufficient details in our case to prove that that is not the case or hasn't been in the case in the examples we use. So trustworthiness and emotional appeal seem to be the two principles that are the most important here. So to make it trustworthy, we need a case study where perhaps the beliefs of the oppressed changed from acceptance of denial of rights to no, we're really going to fight this, we deserve these rights, and enough detail to prove that connection. Apartheid, the civil rights movement might work well there. Some emotional appeal where we actually show that these people actually genuinely often accept the denial of rights or don't believe that they in that situation perhaps deserve to get those rights. They have to be, in order for that emotional appeal, like we need a very typical person in that situation to make it trustworthy and credible and create some empathy. There's no right answer in these situations. Once again, to choose the best evidence, you just think through what do I want to prove, who do I want to prove it with, and come up with a best fit.